Hi there, my name is Justin. I'm the founder of UpFocus. We're the fastest way to turn feedback into something that you should work on. We've helped companies send thousands of product market fit surveys and have learned quite a bit along the way. So I wanted to share today, whether or not you use our tool or something else, how you can crush your user engagement metrics with your own product market fit engine. What we're going to cover is what are the user engagement metrics we're talking about and what does crushing them look like. We'll also quickly touch on what is product market fit and how does it help you do that. We'll give you a simple formula for improving it, and we'll explain how the actual product market fit survey method works. And then, of course, we'll share the tools and tips that we've learned from sending these, and then how you can distill the results. So, crushing your user engagement metrics. There's a great article from David Sachs called The SaaS Metrics That Matter. Highly recommend that you check that out. In that, he does a great job of sort of breaking down from an investor perspective what they are looking for to invest in. And what they're looking for is based on the fact that they've looked at hundreds or thousands of companies, and they have a good sense of what the companies that are performing well look like compared to the ones that are not. So what they look for from user engagement metrics simply boils down to monthly active users and daily active users. You might be tracking for your own app a lot of different other events around adoption and onboarding, etc. And those are very important. But a very simple way to know, am I doing well with product market fit, is to just see, are you getting a 10 to 15% compounded monthly growth rate for your monthly active users, which just means that you're adding 10 to 15% every month. And do you have about 40% of those folks coming back on a daily basis? So on average, the monthly active user is visiting about 2 times a week. If you're doing those two things, you're crushing it on your user engagement metrics. So how does product market fit help you with that? Well, there's a lot of different definitions for how you could explain what product market fit is. I like a simple one, which is when a good market desires your product. So you'll know you're in a good market because it actually has the potential to grow at 10 to 15% every single month or better. And they have to desire your product in that way that you'll actually hit those growth numbers and you'll make sure they're coming back on a daily basis. So if you can nail this, then that's how you're going to crush your user engagement metrics. So let's talk about a quick formula for how you can do that. This is very simple. You want to keep your happy users coming back by refining what they love about your product. That's really important, that you're not just building all kinds of stuff. You're keeping your eye on the ball about the reason that they're buying from you and making that thing better so they don't leave and go to a competitor. And then the second key piece is to convert those on-the-fence users into happy customers by improving what's stopping them from coming back. To do this, you need a way to systematically measure user product satisfaction, so you know who the happy users are and who the on-the-fence users are. You also need to be able to discover product enhancement opportunities, so you can refine what they love about your product and improve what stops them from coming back. There's a few ways, more than this I'm sure, that you can measure product satisfaction. Obviously, you can ask directly about satisfaction. Are you satisfied? You can also ask indirectly, such as using the NPS method, where they ask, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend or family? Or you can use the product market fit method, where you ask indirectly about their fear of missing out. In this case, you ask, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product? Very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, or not disappointed. The reason that I like that method over the other two is, number one, because you know for sure that if they like your product, it's also that they don't want to use another one more. So for example, we may answer that we really like your product, but maybe we have another one that we like just as much, but the way the question was asked didn't allow us to know that. If someone would be very disappointed to lose your software, you know they not only like it, they don't want to use something else. So it's just a crisper answer. The other thing is, when you ask the question this way, it's a very clear answer interpretation between the person who's telling you the answer and the one receiving it. Like on an NPS score, somebody may be giving you an 8, and they think, well, I don't ever get anybody out of an 8, and they think they've done a good job in rating you, and they think they really like you, but you've interpreted that as, well, if it's not a 9 or a 10, then it doesn't count. And if you know the NPS method, you'll know what I mean by that. So in my opinion, the best one to be able to use is the product market fit method for this. All right, so let's talk about how that works in a little more detail. As I just read that first question, it starts with, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product? Very disappointed, or somewhat disappointed, or not disappointed. Your goal is that 40% of these people are going to say that they would be very disappointed. That's your leading indicator for having product market fit. This is based on Sean Ellis, who originally developed the method. He had benchmarked across 100 plus startups and found that the ones who had below 40% were the ones that were typically struggling to grow. The ones who were doing very well really didn't have below 40%. It's not a magic number. It doesn't mean that if you hit that number, you for sure are going to be growing. It just helps you know when you get your score, how are you sitting compared to companies that do well and don't. Ultimately, your goal is to just grow that number over time. And the way you do that is that you ask these follow-up discovery questions. And the ones that you ask are based on how they answer that first question. So if they said that they would be very disappointed, these are your happy users. And so now you ask them, what is the main benefit that you receive from our product? And a thing that we've learned from sending a lot of these is that you should also ask, how can you make that main benefit even better? Because how are you supposed to double down on that main benefit if you don't have any good ideas from them about how you can make it better? So we'd like to ask that as part of our survey. Then another good thing to ask is, what type of people do you think would benefit from using our product? That helps you with marketing to know whether or not you are reaching and targeting all of the potential markets that you should, and are you describing your customers in the words that they use themselves. If they answer the question that they would be somewhat disappointed, these are the ones who you're on the fence users. And then now you want to know what's blocking them. So we'll ask them the questions, how can we improve our product for you? Sometimes people will also ask the same question of, what type of people do you think would benefit from using our product? We just prefer to ask only, how can we improve for you? The people who say they would be not disappointed, these are the people you can ignore because you can't please them. Except we have learned that if you ask the question is there something we could do to improve for you, and give them a yes/no option, and then they say yes, it is still helpful to know what their improvements are, because these might be people that you could bring all the way over the fence. So if they say no, then don't ask for any additional feedback, because it'll just be things that won't necessarily make a difference in your business. All right, let's talk about executing the survey. First, there's lots of different tools out there that you can use for sending emails, surveys, and doing that via links. You can also embed things in your app, and there's some tools that are also product market fit native. One of the key things that separates UpFocus from the rest is how we help you distill the results. So let's get into a little bit of that after we talk about some of these survey sending tips. So first, who should you survey? Well, the ideal survey recipients are people who have experienced the core of your product. That's going to be different for everybody to know whether or not somebody's experienced the core of your product. You basically don't want to have somebody who just signed up and they haven't really used anything yet, and now you're asking, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product? They're going to say, I don't know, I just got started. So whatever your product is, you should have a sense of they have to have at least hit a certain point. You also want them to have at least used the product twice, and that they've used the product somewhat recently, say in the last 2 weeks, or however often your product gets used. You can choose maybe a different frequency. When we send it via email, one of the things that we like to do is use the subject line, quick question about whatever your product name is, and then include that first question in the survey in your email, the one that says, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product? We have found that sometimes people will interpret that question as, wait, are you considering going out of business or shutting down? So we put a very clear disclaimer in there that says, don't worry, we're not going anywhere. This is just how we measure customer satisfaction. Finally, of course, like most emails, send a reminder at least 3 email or business days later, just to make sure that you get as many people as you can to fill that out. Also, about 40 to 50 responses should be statistically significant. If you get less than that, that's okay. It can still really be a meaningful amount of data for you. Frankly, anytime you're getting customer feedback, it is helpful. But if you have a lot of customers and you want to know that the information that you're working off is statistically significant, then 40 to 50 generally does it. Okay, let's talk about how you distill the results. For most people, what the experience is you end up with something that looks like this. You get a survey and you have lots of answers in there from all the unstructured answers that you've got. So you're going to have to export those from whatever tool that you're using. Again, one of the reasons that we like UpFocus and the reason we built it the way we did is you don't have to do that. We give you a whole tagging workflow. I'll do that as part of a separate follow-up video because really I just want to teach you how to do this no matter what tool you use. One thing that came out when Superhuman did a big post where they were interviewed and they've shared their methodology is they talked about how they would use tag clouds. And the tag cloud that they got for their own benefits looked really great and it seemed like, oh yeah, you just take all this unstructured data and throw it into a tag cloud. So we've run some tests. For example, Slack, this is not our actual customer sharing their actual customer data, but a lot of people use Slack, so we did a public survey to learn it. And if you look at what the benefits are in the tag cloud, it looks pretty good. Email is in there, communication is in there, team is in there. But when we looked at the one for improvements, it was a lot of the same words. Slack, communication, better. And you're like, gosh, this isn't really all that actionable for me to figure out, what should I work on? So what we ended up doing is we started to curate those into topics. And what we did is we took all the responses and we made each one, their own row in a spreadsheet. And then as we would read through them, we would add new topics as each column. And then we'd pull out a snippet because sometimes people would tell you 3 or 4 benefits or 3 or 4 things that you could improve. So we'd separate those out. And in the end, we would do a count at the top. Finally, we were able to turn that into something that looked more like this, where now it became a lot more obvious what Slack could do to improve, less noise and distraction, improve productivity, prioritize channels and threads, stuff that was not obvious necessarily from looking at the tag cloud. In a lot of ways, this emulates what we do in our software in UpFocus. We just make it so that it's a lot faster to be able to do it in there. Okay, let's talk about acting on the survey results. You could actually do a whole series on just that, so I'm just going to touch on it really briefly here. And the way that we do it is once you have the topics, sometimes a topic is really small and very obvious that you should work on it, and maybe you just go right from there into your project management system. But sometimes they're not that small, and you have multiple of them, and it's not as obvious which one you should work on. And just because one is more popular than another isn't necessarily enough justification to work on it. Popularity is an important signal, but it's not the only signal, right? So the way that we do it is, one, we start by taking the feedback from those topics and we turn them into opportunity stories. That sounds complicated, but it just really means we write some summary about that feedback so we can relate it. And there might be several different topics that sort of come together to form that story. Then we align those with objectives. So generally, I would recommend that you start with these two, which is retain those happy users and then convert on-the-fence users. And essentially what you're doing there is you're pulling from the answers in that survey where people said, here's how you can make the main benefits better, and the ones where they said, here's the improvements that you could make. And if you have other objectives in there that are important for your business, then you'll want to pull those in as well. So again, you kind of have a sense of the different opportunities and how they could help you achieve your objectives. From there, you can kind of do a quick discussion over the merits of those opportunities and then choose which one you feel is the best. Sometimes one will stick out more obviously than the next. Then you can brainstorm some solutions for those. I like the pitch format that's from ShapeUp. It makes it really easy to be able to just describe solutions at a high level, almost bullet point form. And then you can estimate their potential value and effort. And then you can compare them. And in step 5 here, you would be picking one of those solutions. So then you can allocate, here's how much of my dev time is going toward each of my objectives. and these are the solutions that I think are the best, and push those ones into your project management queue. Then when you're done, survey your new set of users that you've acquired after you've released those new product updates and see if you've made an impact on your product market fit score. And then repeat that process. So again, this is another part that we have taken into the UpFocus workflow and gave you a streamlined workflow so that it is really easy to be able to do these different parts that are normally very hard or manual if you do that without a proper system. So those are the ways that we sort of help make this process smoother and easier. Okay. Thanks for spending some time with me and going through this. And that reminds me, just one more thing. You'll want to apply these learnings to sales and marketing too. So if you've learned what the main benefits are, are you emphasizing those from your happy customers in your sales and marketing on your website? And are you emphasizing those main benefits in the same order that your customers are? And are you describing your customers in their own words? When they told you, who's this product for, is that how you're saying it on your website or in your sales and marketing materials? If you're doing some sort of advertising or any kind of audience targeting, does the audience targeting parameters that you've chosen look like the types of people that are supposed to benefit from your product based on your customers' words? So those are some things to consider. And with that, if you have any questions or you have any feedback, either leave us some comments, feel free to send me an email. I'd love to hear from you, and good luck on crushing your user engagement metrics.